Welcome to Suitcase Packed Will Travel. We recently took a whirlwind trip of Germany and Amsterdam and wanted to bring you along. We're going to show you where we went, where we stayed, and how much it cost. And we're talking everything: transportation, food, lodging, entertainment. We're going to leave it all on the table so you can see realistically what a 12-day trip to Germany and Amsterdam cost us. Plus, we'll show you how we save some money just in case, like us, you love to travel but don't have an unlimited budget.
We had been planning a trip to Japan for late September for almost a year. Unfortunately, a couple weeks before we were scheduled to leave, our dog Chip got sick. As a result, we had to cancel the Japan trip.
And that takes us to our first money-saving tip, which is to always check the refund policy whenever you're booking a flight, hotel, or activity. Almost never do we book something that's non-refundable because we like to have that flexibility specifically for these types of situations. So if we can book it on points or if we're booking in cash, we try and make sure we have as flexible a cancellation policy as possible to minimize the financial downside if for some reason we have to do a last minute pivot.
But after Chip recovered, we still had some vacation time left. So a friend of mine at work was telling me that Oktoberfest was taking place at this time of the year. So we thought, well, geez, why not go there?
And then since we were going to Oktoberfest, Michael decided that he was very sad I got to go to Amsterdam and he didn't. And so we tacked a couple of days on to Amsterdam.
So Kathy searched for some cheap last minute cash deals for flights going to Europe. But honestly,
cheap wasn't really that cheap.
She wasn't really that cheap. Exactly. And we weren't that excited about taking economy for a 6 or 7 hour flight across the Atlantic in these small seats.
And you have to pay extra for everything.
For bag fees and all that stuff. So no.
While we take a lot of economy flights, I think like most people do, we really prefer those lie flat seats, especially when we're going over to Europe, because I feel like we get some better sleep. So we tend not to waste that first day with jet lag as much. But as you might imagine, business class flights are really expensive. In fact, the flights that we ended up going on, because we did go business class on the way there and economy on the way back, which is usually our little hack. That flight that we took was, I looked it up, $8,818 a piece. Now, that is not something we can afford for one of us, never mind two of us. In fact, we can't afford that for an entire trip.
No.
However, we do like to accrue miles on our credit cards for hotels and airlines. So we decided for this trip, we were going to use some of our Alaska airline miles for the flights. The only problem is they were out of Philadelphia.
Which leads to tip number 2. Don't be afraid to look at surrounding airports. Sometimes the savings or upgrade potential that you get by going to another airport that might be a few hours away from your normal airport that you would normally go to is worth the difference and worth the extra time. So while we were figuring out our flight options, which airport we're gonna fly out and all of that, we remembered that I still needed to go down to Atlantic City to Ocean's Casino and update my loyalty card status.
So we're hoping to take a Virgin Voyages trip later this year, and the Ocean Casino card status that Michael gets, and I get too actually, because he's a veteran, allows you to get a Virgin Voyages cruise at a deep discount. So we really wanted to make sure that the membership was updated. And a bit of a side note here, if you happen to be a veteran and you're interested in that deal, we'll leave a link in the description so that you can take a look at our video about that.
Now, we didn't want to drive all the way down to Philadelphia, park the car, fly back there, and then drive all the way back.
Right.
So instead, what we chose to do was park the car at the airport closest to us, rent a car, and drive down.
And how much was our parking?
$30.
Because we did like an economy lot, which was fine with us. And compared to pricing at the Philly airport was way cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
So that That was kind of nice.
Yep. We'll cover the rental costs of the car here in a minute.
We booked a comp night in a standard room at Harrah's Casino with my comp night through their program. And all I had to pay was the $40 resort fee. And because of our Caesars Platinum status, we didn't have to pay for parking while we were there. As an unexpected bonus, they actually upgraded us to a suite, which that had not happened to me before. But I guess maybe because we were only staying one night and it was available, and we did get in pretty late. So anyway, for whatever reason, we ended up with a suite, which was an extra bonus.
Which does go into money saving tip number 3. Consider all your options when you're planning to stay somewhere, whether it be comp nights, hotel points, a friend's house, whatever it is. You may not decide to use certain things, but look at everything when you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'd eaten before we left, but we did buy some snacks for $10.03 on the way down. And then we had dinner at Buddy's Boardwalk Empire at Harrah's. That was $47.51. The next day, we went over to Ocean's Casino first thing and had breakfast/lunch over there. That was $43.41. So it was pretty expensive, but it did hit the spot. And actually the food there is pretty good. I've eaten there a couple of times for different reasons in their food court sort of area. That's not what they call it. But
The district.
The district, there you go.
The district.
They call it the district. Anyway, the food there is pretty good. Now, if you happen to have casino credit, you might be able to defray that cost a little bit. We didn't have any to use, so that came out of pocket. We did make the rounds of the casinos. We brought some money to gamble, and as it turns out, we actually left with a little more money than we came with, which, I don't know, doesn't happen often. That's not how they built casinos, but in our case, we ended up, I don't know, what was it, like $20 or something?
Something.
Yeah. But just remember, gambling is not a money-making venture.
No. So after we were done in Atlantic City, we headed on over to Philadelphia, where our flight was out of. It took us about around an hour to get there. The car we rented it through Costco, and it cost us $192.78 for the rental. It cost us another $31.48. We had to get some gas fill up the gas tank.
Yep.
And it was $11.55 in tolls for the whole trip. You do want to check, whenever you're renting a car, to check on any kind of available discounts, whether it be veteran discount, AAA, AARP, any of those. At the same time, check to see if there's any extra costs for second driver. In our case, there was no extra costs. So
it's one of the nice things about Costco, actually.
So once we got to the airport, dropped off the car, did all of that, we headed over to security. Now we have global entry and TSA pre-check, so we got through security pretty decent.
Yeah, it was fast, I thought.
Got through pretty quick. Right after that, we headed on over to the American Airlines flagship lounge, which we were able to get access to that because we were flying business class seats.
We had to wait in line for just a little bit, but it was absolutely worth it. First thing they did was offer us champagne. It was just that moment of, okay, we're going to relax for a little bit, which sometimes is hard on a travel day, I think, to relax. But they definitely make it easier. A little glass of champagne. Waiter came over to our table, told us about some of the things that weren't on the buffet, but that we could order. And then we just had a snack.
Yeah, it was definitely worth it.
Yeah, and the only thing we paid for at that point was we tipped our waiter, obviously, but otherwise there was nothing that we had to pay for in the lounge.
So after we were done with the lounge, we headed over to our flight, got on the plane, got settled in our seats.
This is cool.
And they brought us dinner right after we got off the ground.
Yeah. And both of us got so excited, like getting settled in our nice comfy seats, that we didn't get any pictures of the actual lie flat seat. I can assure you that we took full advantage.
Oh yeah.
Because we don't have unlimited points, just like cash, we try and be judicious with how we use them. So we find that spending more points to do the lie flat on the way to Europe and then just doing the economy on the way back, which typically costs less points, helps us conserve some of those so we can build in some extra flights.
Yeah. So our overnight flight out of Philly took us into London Heathrow. We got in pretty early the next morning. The terminal we flew into, Terminal 3 at Heathrow, has an American Airlines lounge that's an arrivals only lounge. So we got to take the opportunity to go grab breakfast there.
Free breakfast.
Free breakfast. We were staying at the Holiday Inn and Suites, Bath Road, which is just off the airport. So we caught the Hoppa, Hoppa bus. It goes all around Heathrow Airport, and I guess it's a hop on, hop off kind of thing.
For the hotels.
For the hotels and the airport, to the terminals and the airports.
Yeah.
So it hits all the hotels. We paid $18.24 for the two of us to catch the ride from Terminal 3, where we came in, to that Holiday Inn. We were still a little tired. I was especially tired. I'd started to feel sick anyway. And we were planning to go into London, but we were like, no.
Which is why we booked such a long layover.
Right. We weren't going out till the next morning. Decided to stay at the hotel, which actually turned out to be a really nice hotel.
Yeah, it does mean the only part of London I saw was the houses on the Hoppa bus from the airport to the hotel.
Yes. We used the free annual night stay at the Holiday Inn because I have an IHG credit card, which gets me an annual free night every year.
Right. So the hotel didn't cost us anything. And it was a nice room, and the hotel was perfect for like a layover. There was a sitting area and a good sized bathroom. And then we ended up eating, because again, Michael wasn't feeling fantastic. We did end up eating at the sports bar downstairs, and that cost us $25.69 with a tip, because he also had a $40 food credit. And then the only other thing that we spent there was the $10 for the housekeeper.
Yeah. The other thing about this is we were going to have to get to bed early because we were going to have to get back to the airport at 3 a.m. because we had a 6:20 flight, something like that we had to catch from London Heathrow down to Zurich. Mm-hmm. Okay? And it's considered international, just like here, so it's a 3 hours before the flight kind of thing.
Well, we thought it was. More on that in a moment.
We had to catch an Uber early to get over to the terminal, which is at Terminal 5 for British Airways, because that's who we were flying. That cost us $20.48 for that Uber to get us over there.
And the only reason we did the Uber is because the Hoppa bus didn't start quite that early. I think it
started at
don't
4.
Quote me on this. I think it started at 4. And so we were worried that it wasn't going to give us enough time at the airport. Arrived at the airport 3 hours early after we got out of our Uber. And wouldn't you know it, security wasn't even open. Nope. So I really would have appreciated the extra 45 minutes of sleep. But so be it. As a result, there was no line at security, which was great. So we got to go right through security. We did manage to go to the British Airways lounge for breakfast.
Yeah. And I just want to point out that was also, the galleries lounge was because we were flying business class from there to Zurich. It was all part of our ticket that we bought originally. So the flight from London to Zurich was still business class, or at least that's what they called it, Club Europe. All they did was they took your regular 3 seats that have a little extra leg room, and they stuck a tray in the middle seat, so you can only have 2 folks, 2 people there. It wasn't a separate business class section. It was just the front, call it the front of economy.
Yeah, it did have some elevated food, and the staff was amazing. The service was fantastic.
The captain has now switched on the fasten seatbelt sign and will show the landing into Zurich.
And just like that, we're at Zurich Airport. And now we're headed to the exit and then to find our train into Old Town.
So we decided to do all the transportation in Europe by train, being able to just go through the countryside, see some scenery along the way, see parts of the country that you wouldn't be seeing by plane.
We booked all of our rail through Rail Europe, except for our ticket from the Zurich airport to the Zurich main station, because I was a little nervous about whether or not that flight was going to get delayed, and I honestly didn't want to have to worry about getting a ticket. And that train from the airport to the main station runs really frequently. In fact, that ticket for the two of us to go from the airport to the main station was only $17.56.
Welcome to Zurich train station, one of the busiest train stations not only in Switzerland, but in all of Europe. In fact, more than 2,900 trains come through this station each day.
In a couple of hours, we're catching our train to Munich, but we wanted to see if we could catch a couple of sites while we were here. So our first stop was the luggage lockers. So you can get them in various sizes. They have small, medium, large, and not in this section, but they do have extra large or extra large.
You find an open locker, which you'll know because there'll be a little green light on each locker that'll lit green. That means it's open. You just open it up, put your luggage inside. You close it to make sure it clicks. You'll know because the light will go from green to a blinking red. And then you'll go over to this kiosk, which the default is 6 hours, but you can book it up to like 96 hours for like the red and gray ones. And then you go ahead and pay for it. It'll print out a ticket with a QR code on it so that when you come back and get your luggage, you just scan that QR code and your locker will open up, pull it out.
Well, these in a safe place. So unlike in the US, you have to pay to use the water closet here. So I'm going to take my handy dandy credit card and get in line for the ladies' room. They usually take both cash and card. It cost me $1.88. But again, I always recommend you have a little cash because sometimes the readers don't work. From the train station, once we got our bags and I'd gone to the bathroom, we decided we were going to walk through Old Town Zurich. So we strolled the Lamont River and took some beautiful pictures. We window shopped. We were in Switzerland, so guess what? We got chocolate and some coffee to take home and to have on the train ride. And then we crossed back over the Lamont River and we went to the Rothas Bridge, which has this really cool vintage carousel. And then we kind of meandered through town, went past St. Peter's Church, and then made our way back up to the train station.
We stopped in and bought ourselves a couple of sandwiches and drinks for the train. Cost us $24.08. And then we jumped on the train out of Zurich. It was 3.5-ish hours from Zurich to Munich, Germany.
First class from Zurich to Munich because it was about 3.5 hours and we wanted it to be comfortable and have assigned seats and all those things. So that was $336 for the two of us.
So after arriving in Munich at the main station, we walked from there to our hotel, which is located in Old Town. It was about a 15 to 20 minute walk.
They have 3 medieval city gates that are still in Munich, and so this is one of them. And it marks the western edge of the Altstadt, which is the Old Town. It stands at the beginning of the Karlsplatz, which is one of the plazas. A couple of the locals said that's where a lot of protests happen. And actually, while we were there, somebody was protesting something on a little platform with a bullhorn. He was very emphatic, but unfortunately I don't speak German, so I can't even tell you what he was talking about. But anyway, that seems to have rung true. So we did get a picture of Michael in front of the Stackus that turns into an ice rink in the winter.
So here's another money-saving tip for you. It might seem obvious, but sometimes walking when you can is the better option. We aren't proposing walking everywhere. It all depends on how far it is, what you're carrying with you. Do you have a bunch of bags? But it is a great way to get a little bit of exercise, great way to see the city as you go along, and you're going to see things that you wouldn't see if some guy was taking around in an Uber or a cab.
We stayed at the House of Hutter Hotel Munchner Kindle. It was a really lovely boutique hotel. Kind of had an over-the-top style, which actually I appreciated. But we really chose it because it had an amazing location within walking distance to Oktoberfest, which was kind of the big reason why we were in Munich to start with. And the staff, they were super friendly and welcoming. Before we went up to our room, they did give us a tour of the common area, which includes an honor bar towards the back of the hotel, which is nice. We didn't really use it, but it was nice that it was there. And then we went up to our rooms. It has a very compact elevator. Two of us and our bags fit.
That was it.
And the rooms were also very compact. They were really well designed. They had ours. They're all different. They're all designed a little differently. Their amenities within the room were maybe a little different. And we picked one of the smaller rooms, which is called the Prestige Room. But it was perfectly adequate for the two of us. The only thing I will say that I didn't like, maybe it's a warning, is in our room, the bathroom shower had a large glass window. And in a lot of places, even places that do that I've been to before, there's a button that'll frost it, or there's a shade, or there's something. This didn't have any of that. So if you forgot to close the blinds on the other side of the sitting area, then somebody got a view that they probably weren't anticipating. What we loved, aside from the staff, because the staff were very sweet, is the location. You could not beat this location. If we'd booked it in cash, typically runs around $400 a night. Can be more than that during certain times of the year. I would imagine Oktoberfest as well. But we used Hyatt points for this.
Yeah.
So we only stayed 2 nights. And it was 46,000 Hyatt points a night, but it was a hefty chunk of change as far as points, but there was no resort fee. There were no extra charges. It was just the points. And given that it was Oktoberfest and we literally booked it like 4 days before we got there, I was okay with that. Yeah.
And that takes me to another money saving tip. Take a look at all the hotel choices you have around wherever you plan to go. Sometimes just because a hotel is cheaper, whether that be money or points, but you find out it's 3-4 miles away from where it is you really want to be, you might find, hey, it's better. I want to be right here in the Old Town area so I can walk everywhere I want to go. I'll spend a little extra to be right there. You know, it'd be because your cabs and everything else will eat up the difference. So it's worth it to just take that into account.
Yeah, we actually did consider some other hotels that were less expensive, also with points, because we were trying to do some of this on points. But what we realized was getting from one place to another was going to take up some time. And because we were there such a short period of time, it's not like we were there for a week, we really wanted to maximize our location of the hotel. So we spent less time going back and forth.
Yep.
After we got checked in, unpacked in the room, kind of got settled a little bit, we went out to dinner. We walked to the southern part of Old Town. We were heading for Andy's Krabblergarten, which I had seen. I had written down a note. Somebody had recommended it on another YouTube video as I was doing research. Honestly, I can't remember who that was. But they did not steer us wrong. I had the one with the green peppercorn sauce. It was fantastic. It was really good. Although I have to say, having some of your fiery Krabblergarten schnitzel, that really was fire. It was good.
And this was the pork schnitzel.
Yes, this was the pork schnitzel. And then I had a Radler, which is half beer. Usually it's half lemonade or like a citrus soda. And I'm not sure what they put in mine, but it was also really good. It's the first time I've had it. It was not the last time I had it, though. It's nice because it's a little more refreshing than just a beer and doesn't have as much alcohol. Andy's Krabblergarten is cash only, and so we spent about $60 US for dinner. And just a reminder, in a lot of places in Europe, if you ask for water, they're going to offer you bottled water. If you want tap water, you specifically have to ask for it. Otherwise, they're going to charge you for a bottle. I drink a lot of water, so honestly, I can go through a lot of euros just in water. So I always ask for tap water. Sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't. And if they don't, I just pay for the bottle. But you can ask for tap water when you're in a restaurant.
So the next morning, we went to a place called the French Touch Patisserie for breakfast. Now, Kathy had the What would we call it?
Pistachio French toast.
Pistachio French toast.
Which honestly I thought was a little dry. The pistachio sauce on top was pretty good, but I felt like the French toast was a little dry, so it's not something I would actually recommend.
Now, I had the Eggs Benedict. I would say it was just an average meal. It wasn't like wow, but it was good in that, like it was just good. It did feel a little overpriced, I have to admit. Kathy's Earl Grey, she had Earl Grey tea. That was what, like €4?
Like €4
4
for
euros,
tea.
which, it's like $5.50. It's not a place we'd probably go back to. We ended up spending $36.87 for breakfast. It was rainy most of the time that we were there, for the 2 days we were there physically in Munich. But I will say this, we still, even with the rainy weather, we still were able to get out and see a lot of things.
So this morning we're here at the Awesome Church. It's kind of a little rainy here in Munich, but this is one of the famous churches here. It's got a very Baroque style. It was built by the Awesome brothers. First stone was laid in 1736, and it was actually designed to be a private church, but it did get opened up to the public. There are lots and lots of pedestrian-only streets here. So you'll see delivery vans, but otherwise they don't have any other cars here.
Then we went over to the Cafe AM Marienplatz to get some coffee and watch the Glockenspiel go off. I will say this, one cappuccino and one flat white was $15.08. So not cheap, but the whole plaza gets packed to watch it go off. So us being able to sit right there and enjoy a cup of coffee and just watch it from a seated position, what made it well worth it to do that. We were able to enjoy some entertainment in the square.
Just got through getting some nuts. There seem to be a ton of places that you can get roasted nuts of all kinds: cashews, macadamia, pistachio, walnut, whole 9 yards. So we've seen 3 in the span of about 100 yards. There's no shortage of warm nuts here in Germany.
We did a little bit of shopping afterwards.
And we were trying to find a specific gift for one of our nephews. That did not go well, but we did end up going to the Augustiner Keller restaurant for lunch. The food was good. I wouldn't say it was great, although you really liked the pork knuckle. And the spätzle that I had was good. We paid $51.35 for that. That didn't include beer. And yeah, if you go there, you definitely need to check out the bathrooms. Talk about feeling medieval.
So we went back to the hotel and rested for a little while we waited for the rain to stop. Well, at least temporarily. And then we headed on over to Oktoberfest.
All right, this is where we're going to pause the trip. So far, we've taken you from leaving home to our pre-flight night in Atlantic City, through Zurich into Munich, with every cost tracked along the way. In the next video, we're heading straight into Oktoberfest, the reason we planned this trip in the first place. And then we're off to the Alps and wrapping up with our final nights in Amsterdam. If you're planning a trip to Munich or Amsterdam, or just want to see what our grand total was for 12 nights in Europe, be sure to subscribe to our channel and get notified when the next video goes up. For now, this is Kathy
And Mike.
from Suitcase Packed Will Travel. We'll see you in the next one.